Joining us live now is our backbenchers, Labor MP Julian Hill and the Liberal MP Keith Woollahan. Julian, first to you, do you agree with the former PM here?
Well, look, Paul Keating, I think he made some of these comments in the context of an interview for his 80th birthday. He had a wide-ranging discussion. First thing I'd do is wish Mr Keating a happy 80th birthday. I think history will rightly judge him as one of Australia's greatest leaders, not just for his years as Prime Minister, but for the years before that as Treasurer, working with Bob Hawke, laying the foundations for decades of prosperity to come with historic reforms like Medicare, which turned 40 this year, superannuation and so on. The Keating government, under Paul Keating as Treasurer, also engaged in tax reform, for example, the corporate tax reform rates, which were not just about a narrow, sterile debate of cutting the headline rate, which Malcolm Turnbull and Scott Morrison were engaged in, but were about improving the productivity and efficiency of the tax system. Mr Keating's absolutely entitled to his comments and views, of course, but the government's got a full tax reform agenda. Right now we're focused on getting the legislation through the Parliament to deliver a tax cut to every Australian taxpayer, all 13.6 million
So the short answer to all of that is you don't agree with the former PM on those 2 points?
Well, Mr Keating's entitled to his views. As I said, the government's focused on getting Labor's tax cuts for every Australian taxpayer through the Parliament.
OK, yep, understand that. Now, Keith, I find this interesting in the context of the whole tax reform debate that's taking place at the moment. Now, your team is putting together a package ahead of the election. Does any of what Paul Keating has said this morning appeal to you?
Some of it does, and like Julian, I wish former Prime Minister Keating a happy birthday. Political parties are like families, and former Prime Ministers are like uncles. Some of them are crazy, some of them are not, but you still love them. And so Paul Keating has a lot of interesting things to say. I always listen and read when he speaks. I don't agree with what he has to say, particularly on the US alliance. I think he's missing the mark here of the world that we live in. But on economics, he was a reformist as the Treasurer and then less so as a Prime Minister. But his record has created economic wealth in this country for a long time. And there's a lot of lessons there, not just for my party, but for the current Labor Party.
OK, but is the top tax rate too high? Is it taking away too much after it goes to 39%? And does the progressive system need to change and become indexed?
I'm not going to announce specifics of tax policy here as a backbencher on morning TV to your listeners. I think they're having their cereal. They'd rather hear other things. But we all know that we skew towards income tax too much. We charge far more in income tax in this country compared to other countries.
So bring it down and index it.
Well, look, the country has gone through that debate before, and of course you should look at things, but certainly when we have non-indexation, bracket creep means that every Australian is paying more tax and being pushed into a higher tax bracket just through inflation. So we're going to see more Australians pay more tax over time, and that's why bracket creep is that thief in the night that takes from all us.
And that is true, Julian. That is true. I mean, your changes do nothing to address bracket creep.
Well, that's just patently not true. I'd make 2 points. The first point is that Labor, if you look at, this is an inconvenient fact, if you look at the statistics, the percentage of tax to GDP ratio over the last few decades, Labor is a lower taxing party of government. The two highest taxing parties in modern times were number 1, John Howard, number 2, Scott Morrison. I mean, that's just a fact. And so we're focused on getting our tax cuts through the Parliament to return more of what people earn to their pockets. OK. Closing thought, Keith, on that?
My closing thought is that's just nonsense. The Labor government like to forget that COVID ever happened.
Well, it's actually true. I mean, you can't dismiss a fact by saying it's nonsense.
Just finish that point, Keith.
Thank you. They like to forget that the Howard government actually paid down extraordinary Labor debt. So paying down debt is the other side of this coin, and you need to do both, and this government's not doing either.
Julian?
I mean, it's Orwellian, isn't it? $1 trillion of Liberal debt, nothing much to show for it. The highest.
You supported a lot of that debt, though, to be fair.
Even before COVID, the former Liberal government doubled Australia's debt. They were the highest taxing government in modern Australian history, second only to John Howard. I mean, these are facts. We can't just wish them away.
All right. Julian, Keith, good to chat. Nothing gets us going like tax in the morning.